Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a critical and rapidly evolving situation, the war in Ukraine. There are some major shifts happening on the ground and in the halls of power, and it's crucial we understand what they mean. The landscape of this conflict is changing, with NATO countries re-evaluating their support for Ukraine and Russia deploying new and, frankly, concerning tactics. So what's really going on? Let's start with the big headline. The flow of aid to Ukraine is slowing down. For over 2 years, a coalition of Western nations, led by the United States and key European allies, has provided a lifeline of financial and military support. This aid has been instrumental in helping Ukraine defend itself. However, recent data shows a significant drop in new aid commitments. According to the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, which has been tracking this support, aid pledges have hit their lowest point since the beginning of the war. So, why the sudden hesitation? Well, it's a complex mix of factors. In the United States, political gridlock in Congress has held up a massive aid package. There are growing debates about the long-term cost and the direction of the war, leading to a stall in what was once bipartisan consensus. Across the Atlantic, Europe is also feeling the strain. Countries like Germany and the UK have been huge contributors, but domestic economic pressures and something called war fatigue are starting to set in. Citizens are feeling the pinch from inflation and energy costs, and some are questioning the massive spending on a conflict with no clear end in sight. This isn't to say support has vanished overnight. Many leaders, like NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, continue to stress the importance of staying the course. They argue that a Ukrainian defeat would have devastating consequences for European security, but the political will is being tested like never before. The initial unity and resolve we saw in early 2022 are facing serious challenges from internal political squabbles and a weary public. This uncertainty is creating a huge problem for Kyiv, which relies on this steady stream of support to not just fight, but to simply function as a state, paying pensions and salaries. Now, let's shift our focus to the battlefield, because what's happening there is directly connected to this aid situation. Russia has been adapting its military strategy, and it's causing major headaches for Ukrainian forces. After the initial phases of the war, where large-scale offensives were common, the conflict has largely settled into a brutal war of attrition. But within this grind, Russia is employing new tactics that are proving to be frighteningly effective. One of the most significant changes is the massive increase in the use of glide bombs. These are essentially old, Soviet-era dumb bombs that have been retrofitted with wings and a simple guidance system. They can be launched from fighter jets far behind the front lines, well out of the range of most of Ukraine's air defense systems. These bombs, some weighing over 1,000 pounds, are then able to glide for dozens of kilometers to their targets. Why are these so dangerous? First, their sheer number. Russia is reportedly dropping hundreds of these every single day along the front. They are cheap to produce, and Russia has a vast stockpile of the old bombs to convert. Second, their destructive power is immense. They can level fortified positions, command posts, and entire buildings in an instant. Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines have described the experience as terrifying, with no effective way to counter them without advanced air defense systems like the Patriot, which are in very short supply. This relentless aerial bombardment is designed to exhaust Ukrainian defenders and pave the way for ground assaults. Another tactic we're seeing is what military analysts are calling meat assaults or human wave attacks. Russia is leveraging its significant manpower advantage, sending waves of poorly equipped but numerous soldiers to storm Ukrainian positions. While this results in staggering casualties for the Russian side, the goal is to overwhelm defenders through sheer mass. For Ukrainian soldiers, who are already outnumbered and often low on ammunition, facing these continuous waves is both physically and psychologically draining. It forces them to expend precious bullets and shells on wave after wave of attackers, knowing that more are always coming. Combined, these tactics create a grim picture. The glide bombs obliterate defenses from a safe distance, and then the ground assaults exploit the resulting chaos and weaken positions. It's a brutal, attritional strategy designed to grind down Ukraine's ability to resist, especially when their ammunition and anti-air capabilities are dwindling due to the aid slowdown. This is a deliberate strategy by Moscow, which seems to believe it can outlast Ukraine and its Western backers in a long drawn-out war. So, how is Ukraine responding to this dual crisis of dwindling aid and new Russian tactics? Well, they're in an incredibly tough spot. President Zelensky and his top officials are on a non-stop diplomatic tour, pleading with allies to speed up aid deliveries. They are making it clear that without more ammunition, and especially more air defense systems, holding the line will become increasingly difficult. They're not just asking for more. They're asking for it now. The delay of even a few weeks can mean the loss of territory and, more tragically, the loss of lives. On the home front, Ukraine is trying to ramp up its own domestic arms production. They've had some success, particularly with developing innovative long-range drones that have been used to strike targets deep inside Russia, like oil refineries and military bases. This is a way of fighting back asymmetrically, hitting Russia where it hurts economically and logistically, even when they can't match them cannon on the front line. These drone strikes are a testament to Ukrainian ingenuity and resolve. But experts agree they cannot replace the need for heavy artillery, tanks, and air defense systems that only Western partners can provide in sufficient quantities. Ukraine is also facing a severe manpower shortage of its own. After 2 years of intense fighting, the army is exhausted. The government recently passed a controversial mobilization law to lower the draft age and bring more soldiers into the ranks. But this is a difficult and unpopular measure. It highlights the immense human cost of this war and the challenge of sustaining the defense effort over such a long period. What does all of this mean for the future of the conflict? It feels like we're at a pivotal moment. The next few months could be decisive. If Western aid, particularly from the U.S., remains stalled, Ukraine will find it incredibly challenging to withstand Russia's intensified pressure. The Russian strategy is banking on this very scenario, that the West will waver and Ukraine will be left isolated and vulnerable. However, it's not all doom and gloom. European nations are actively discussing new ways to support Ukraine, even without the U.S. on board. Initiatives like the Czech-led plan to source artillery shells from outside the EU show that there is still a strong desire to help. The question is whether these efforts can scale up quickly enough to fill the gap left by the U.S. and counter the sheer volume of Russia's military machine. The situation on the ground is a direct reflection of the political decisions being made thousands of miles away. The bravery and resilience of Ukrainian soldiers can only go so far without the tools they need to fight. Russia's new tactics are a stark reminder that this is a war of resources and industrial capacity as much as it is a war of tactics and courage. The glide bombs and human wave attacks are a brutal but effective combination designed to exploit Ukraine as current vulnerabilities. In conclusion, the war in Ukraine has entered a new and dangerous phase. The reduction in Western aid is having a real and immediate impact on the battlefield, just as Russia is escalating its attacks with new, devastating methods. Ukraine is fighting back with everything it has, from domestic innovation to difficult mobilization measures, but it is facing an uphill battle. The coming weeks and months will test the resolve of Ukraine's allies and determine whether Kyiv gets the support it needs to weather this storm. The outcome of this conflict remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the stakes have never been higher for Ukraine and for the broader security of Europe. We'll be keeping a close eye on this story as it develops. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis helpful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more in-depth reports. Your support helps us continue to bring you this important content. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.